and welcome to the Jeff Buller Show. Today I have with me Crista Grasso. Now, Crista hails from a beautiful part of the world on the East Coast between Boston and New York, and she is the founder of leanoutmethod.com. And we're going to discover a little bit more about what the leanoutmethod.com is and does, and the magic it brings to the world. And so Krista is going to share some of her ideas, what she's learned along the way. She's also a podcaster. Always good to meet fellow podcasters. And we're going to also find out about her 90-day Lean Out Planner, which sounds pretty good. It's actually a print planner. It's good old-fashioned print planning type methodologies. In other words, you have to get out a pen and use a pointy end of it. And we're looking forward to find a little bit more about that. And I love one of her phrases, which is simplicity equals scalability. And at the moment, Krista, I am on a journey of decluttering and trying to simplify life, and I look forward to hearing some of your wise words on that. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat today.
So Krista, you are now an entrepreneur. I don't know how long we haven't talked. We haven't gone back into that story, but we wanted to share that story right here. So what got you into starting out leanoutmethod.com and into this sort of strategic planning for leading global businesses, which is what you do, and helping entrepreneurs to scale? And that's one of my favorite words, is how you can scale. And we want to dive a bit more into that area as well. So what got you into this gig?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think sometimes our paths are just journeys that we never really imagined. It's just a series of events that come together. And I had been in college and I was a fine art major, and I knew I wanted to do something for myself, but I wasn't entirely sure what. And so I ended up deciding, well, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I should probably understand business. So I changed majors, I got a business degree, I graduated, wasn't sure what to do. And at the time, I had been managing a Starbucks, and one of my morning customers had pulled me aside one day and said, "Why are you here? I have this amazing opportunity. I'd love to have you come work for this company that I'm with." And it was a great opportunity. Of course, I said yes immediately. But what I did not realize is that would kind of reshape my entire journey. And I ended up becoming a consultant because he needed me to start right away. And it was the only way for me to start. I didn't even know what consultant was. I said, sure, sign me up. And I started as a consultant. And the company that I was brought into was a manufacturing company. It was in aerospace, and they did a lot with lean. And so I fell into consulting, I fell into lean, and I fell into project management. So starting with doing a lot of strategic planning, that was actually what he had hired me for. And it just created this whole path that I never foresaw, that I've enjoyed and have been doing for 21 years now.
Wow. So th- it really was an accident. The intersection of, I suppose, your skill with an opportunity, and you just happen to be in the right place, right time.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to hear these stories. Uh, I interviewed a guy called, I think, Dave Levinsky, and and he's the what we call the one-page business, or the business planning man. And I said, "Did you write a business plan for starting the business planning business? Did you write a business plan?" He said, "Nope." And I went, strange about that. In fact, most of the entrepreneurs I've interviewed didn't write an initial business plan. It just is this beautiful intersection of what they're good at, their innate ability, also their experience, and also opportunity and passion. So it's this beautiful intersection, and one term used the Japanese way is a kagai, which I think is really fabulous. So um, great to hear that you discovered this by accident. So what? So you did this first consulting gig, okay? And a lot of people now can do consulting online using Zoom and other tools. Um, so you started this first project, which, and actually at this stage you're a solopreneur, right?
Yep. Mhm.
So what happened from there? And you've obviously, I think you've moved beyond being a solopreneur now to have a small team around, or team around you. So what were some of the challenges you had, and opportunities that popped out of that first gig?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really fascinating. I think one of the keys to my success with that first experience that has shaped a lot of what I've done throughout my entire entrepreneurial journey is because of the nature of the work that I was doing, I got to personally meet almost every single person in that business. And I was helping, it was a company that was growing by acquisition. And so we were moving from one location to another, and I was planning the entire move. So everybody wanted to know me because everybody wanted to make sure that their move went well. They didn't have any downtime, and everything was good. So I built all of these relationships with these people. And it ended up being, I was with this company for, I think, about 7 years. I moved on amongst a lot of different groups and areas, but I was with them for so long. And I think so much of that was because of the relationships that I built. And I started in a place of service and wanting to help people and make sure that they were very successful. And in turn, they came to me with a lot of other opportunities, which was why I was with them for so long, because they kept saying, "Oh, you're done here. This is great, but we'd love to have you come help us over here."
Hmm.
And so I ended up with this really long engagement. And in parallel, I did use my fine art degree and I went and I launched a jewelry business. And what was really fascinating, and this is where some of my challenges and biggest lessons learned have come in, is I did not apply in my jewelry business what I was doing with my corporate consulting clients. And I could kick myself now looking back for doing that. But at the time, I just was like, I put the artist hat on and said, I'm making a physical product. It has nothing to do with what I do with these big technology companies. And I didn't see the parallels early on. And I wish I did. That was what ended up actually generating me to create the lean out method and to leverage it now with so many other businesses, because I did what a lot of business owners do in the beginning. I made a lot of assumptions about what my market wanted without testing them, a lot of very expensive assumptions, because they did not actually want what I thought that they wanted. I worked really hard. I mean, I pretty much burnt myself out. I worked around the clock. I put myself in a lot of debt. I
Hmm.
made just a lot of classic new business mistakes that were amplified by the fact that I had a product business. So, because it was a lot of inventory,
Yeah.
the expenses were very high and the risk was very high associated with it. And it was at a really pivotal point in that business where I was faced with a decision of, all my sales reps and everybody was telling me I needed to move production to China. I really felt passionately about keeping it in the US and protecting the quality of the pieces. And we were in such a tough financial place, that I was really looking at, do I move production to China? Do I close the business? Is there a way that I could actually keep what I care about and what I value, keep production in the US and be able to pay my mortgage and keep this business going? And it was through that, like, rock bottom of business, if you will, that I recognized, why am I not leveraging any of the things that I'm doing when I'm consulting with these other businesses to
Hmm.
get them these incredible results? And I'm applying none of it to my own business. And that was the birth of lean out method. But it was putting systems in place, it was simplifying, it was building my team, it was doing the things, that I now teach people to do, that really turned that business completely around. I did keep production in the US. I did keep my quality up. That business is still alive and thriving. But it was a definite journey, getting to where I am today and to forming the lean out method and having that epiphany.
So, the word lean, um, tell us, so because what you've done is you've taken a concept that's used in business, lean, the lean method, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you've created your own, I suppose, variation of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's touch on the lean method and then let's maybe do a bit of a deeper dive into what your lean out method is all about. So tell us a bit about the lean method. A lot of people have maybe have heard of it or in dispatches, but never really dived into it. So what's the lean method?
Yeah, anybody who has spent any time in corporate has probably heard lean, and anybody outside of corporate may have never heard of lean.
Yep.
But it grew up in manufacturing, and Toyota is the one that really gets a lot of the credit for the Toyota production system, TPS, which was back in the 1930s. And they really revolutionized the way that automobiles were manufactured. And lean in general is about improving quality and eliminating waste, and they were able to cut down production time. They were able to remove a lot of waste and inconsistencies from the process of how vehicles were made. And as a result, they really became profitable and kind of far exceeded other manufacturing companies in that space. And for years, people studied them and looked at what was it that they did. And there were books written in the 80s about it, which was when the word lean kind of got coined.
Mm.
But it's really all about improve quality, reduce waste.
Yeah.
There's more to it, but at its most essential, right? That is true of every single business out there. And that's why I created Lean Out Method, because I use it more for online entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and such. And it's not used heavily in that space, but everybody should be improving quality and reducing waste. So I think there's just so much applicability no matter what type of business you have.
Great. And obviously, that aha moment or the grind and the challenge of doing a product based business obviously highlighted waste, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Stock sitting around doing nothing, looking for a home. Um, so, the lean out method, can you give us a quick snapshot of what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the method itself has four main pillars. We start with context, we move to clarity, then we have commitment, and finally we have Kaizen, which is a lean concept, which means small, continuous improvements and changes for the better. And the reason why I came up with those four pillars is if you look at where most businesses have waste, if you look at most entrepreneurs who are overworked and who are overwhelmed and have a lack of clarity on what to really be working on, it comes from the fact that they have not set their context. And so, context is clarity of vision, knowing what you actually want, and that the things that you're investing your time and money and energy in are the things that are going to take you where you want to go and are directionally correct. It's looking at your business model and making sure that the business model and the way that you have your business structured actually both supports that vision, but also supports what's important to you outside of your business, because I think you can't just look at business. You have to look holistically. We typically aren't going to be having multi-billion dollar businesses and 30,000 employees, right? Our businesses are very personal to us, and our role in that business is very personal. And so I think we have to look at those things that are important to us outside of work as well as our business when we're looking at our vision, and our business model and how much we want to work and what we want to invest our time doing and the impact that we want to have in the world. And so to me, that's where that context comes in. And that's the backbone of everything. Because when you know what you want and where you're going and why it's important, it makes it a whole lot easier to move into clarity and make decisions around what am I actually going to invest my time, money, and energy in, and what am I going to say no to? Because so often, if you look at where people are spending their time, it's not on the things that are actually going to take them where they want to go.
That's it's a very, very wise, I suppose, framework to me, and the in the sense that um, we sometimes forget. I think the lovely phrase you just used then was you got to learn to say no, learn to say no more. That's something I was certainly about 4 or 5 years ago saying, does this serve me, or am I just someone's to-do list? So let's have a little look at each one. And you've already done that a little bit, but let's start with the first pillar of the lean out method, context. What sort of framework do you have for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different things that we do when we look at in context. And so I mentioned vision. And when I shared vision, right, I talked about the importance of looking both at the vision for the business and also for yourself. But there's a third component of vision that I think is really important that a lot of people miss that has a big influence on business model, and that is your customer. So I think a really good vision is that like Venn diagram of customer, of yourself and your business. And the reason I say that is if you think to the future, let's say you're looking 10 years to the future, what does that customer of the future need from you? How do their needs evolve? And does your customer evolve with you? Is the customer you have today the same customer you're going to have in 10 years? And you need to consistently be developing products and offers that are going to, keep ascending and meeting them where they're at. Or do you serve someone like a startup market where you constantly need to be generating new leads because as soon as somebody graduates out of working with you, they're done. Maybe you refer them somewhere else, but maybe you don't have another offer for them. And I think these sorts of things are the things that you want to be thinking through because that has a really big impact on your business model, which is the next piece of the context pillar. Because again, if you think about, let's say you do serve a startup market, well, if you don't have anything to ascend somebody into, you're leaving a lot of money on the table and a lot of opportunity to be retaining clients. So I think it's always good to be thinking this through end to end and thinking about your customer journey and what is next for them and what can you do that stays true to your kind of passions and your zone of genius, but that doesn't have it be a transactional type of business. You're actually building a customer for life. And so this to me is a lot of context is just thinking really strategically about what's important to you, what do you want, but also thinking about that customer of tomorrow and how your business model and the different offers that you have and how you approach your sales and your marketing really lends to serving them, not just today, but also into the future. So that's the context pillar.
That's really cool. I do love the vision having three elements. Number one, the business, you, and the customer in the middle. If we call that, that's a nice, simple Venn diagram. Simplicity. You've done it there. You've nailed it. So, clarity. So,
There.
what are the elements of clarity that people need to abide by?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about, in context, if you've got your vision, vision helps you answer the question, is this the right thing? Right. And if something's not the right thing, it becomes an easy no. Now, when you get to clarity, clarity is all about, is this the right thing right now? So clarity is where you're developing your plans. It's what I call your lean strategic plan. And I think that every business needs strategic planning. I think every business should have longer term roadmaps as well as 90-day plans. I think a lot of people over architect their plans and take strategic planning to a level that does not actually serve them. It's just a lot of time and predictive behavior that doesn't actually meet reality. So I believe in lean strategic planning where you are setting kind of at a very high level those long-term roadmaps. You're doing more of your detail just in time so that you have clarity on where you're going. You know what's important, but you're creating your daily plans that day. You're creating your weekly plans that week, and you have a much higher level plan at that 90-day horizon at the beginning of the quarter. And so I teach people what I call the 15 by 1 model, which is the 15 minutes a day, 1 hour a week planning. And if you do create that lean strategic plan, not only do you have clarity on what to focus on in the next 90 days, but you have a nice framework to invest just the right amount of time into planning so that you stay focused. You don't let the bright, shiny objects distract you, but that you're not investing all of your time in planning. You're actually implementing and doing.
Yeah, I think that's really good that you're not overcomplicating the planning by the sound of it, but you're emphasising the doing, but keeping that clarity and that context in, I suppose, well, the context uh, in context. Um, so, yeah, and the 90-day planner that you obviously provide on your site, people can order. That I suppose provides that framework for planning for the day and for the week and for the 90 days. Is that correct?
Absolutely, it does. And so in the planner, you set your context, you define your vision, you define your goals, you actually put your habits in place for your day. You look at your ideal life. So, what does an ideal day look like for you? What do you actually spend your time doing? And once you get kind of that whole, what I call your ecosystem for success in place, then it has your typical weekly and daily pages so that you can stay laser focused and actually achieve your goals.
Sounds fabulous. I might have to buy one of those. Yeah, but routine and what your good habits are certainly serve you. And we sometimes think of ourselves as machines, and I think we forget that we're actually human beings having an experience, and we're both souls, we're minds, and we're bodies. We're not just a number. We're not just a mechanical device that you just pull the lever and it just pops up every day. So I'm certainly a big one for that. Exercise, meditation, relationships, all that context. And if I'm too busy to not be exercising, then I'm too busy. That's certainly one of my philosophies I had for a long time. So, so we move on from context to clarity and the third pillar. And what's the third pillar?
The third pillar is commitment.
Okay.
And commitment to me is doing whatever it takes to actually achieve your goals and to make that vision a reality, but not in the hustle 24 by 7, work around the clock, sacrifice, exercise, and all
Mm-hmm.
those things that are important to you,
Yep.
right? It's more of a you're committed to keep going when things get tough. You're committed to work through the mindset blockers and what I call the mindset gremlins that come up where you start to doubt, is this going to work? Is this really good enough? Is anybody going to want this? Am I the right person to do this? Right. We all have those different things that come up at different points in our journey. And to me, commitment is having a growth mindset. It's staying focused, it's staying laser focused on what you said you're going to do and continuing to push through when things get tough. But it's also a part of being committed to, I mentioned that ecosystem for success. So if you said that something was really important to you, like maybe you meditate every single morning and I do Pilates every morning, right? So you do Pilates or you run on the treadmill or you go for a walk. If you know that that is what you need to do to operate at your best, you commit to that time and you do not, under any circumstances, give that up. And so that to me is commitment. It's going all in on your goals and making sure that you achieve them, but that you are setting yourself up for success very holistically and not just looking at your business in a vacuum.
Yeah, and it's very important to keep your life and business in context. So, so the fourth pillar.
Yeah, the fourth pillar is Kaizen. As I mentioned, that's a lean concept that's all about small continuous improvements and changes for the better. And so, Kaizen to me is actually reviewing, measuring, reflecting, right? It's looking at and analyzing what's working, what's not working, right? If you think about a lean business, to me, when you lean out your business, there's two concepts to it. You eliminate the things that aren't working, but you also double down on and optimize the things that are working. And you can't do those things if you don't take the time to reflect and actually look at what is working, what's serving me. And working can mean different things. It can mean it's generating the results that you want. It can mean that you still find it fulfilling. It can mean that it's still in alignment with where you want to take your business in its next level. It's not something that you're just still doing that's legacy that you dread. And every time somebody signs up for the program, you want to like cry, right? It's not that. It can be more than just financial. It's what's working and in alignment and something that you want to keep doing. And to me, I think that reflection piece of it and the metrics and data piece of it is really critical. Gut is great, but you do need to actually look at data and make informed decisions and really look deeply at what is serving you and what isn't when you think about taking your business and yourself to that next level.
Yeah, I want to get into data in a minute. I think that's really important. Something I had a question I was going to ask you, but yeah, the data side is fascinating. And you did mention that you didn't take your own lessons when you started the jewelry business. In other words, you just went by the gut, by the sounds of it. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't test or didn't use data to inform your buying decisions, maybe your selling decisions. Um, and yeah, so that's fascinating. So, um, how do you, like, you're saying no to things that I suppose aren't working, and saying yes to things that are working? Um, so, Kaizen is, I suppose, a type of philosophy, isn't it? That is hard to. Is it got structure, or is it just a philosophy, more Kaizen?
Both.
Okay, let's
So
start
it
with the philosophy then more. We've already talked about it, but I'm fascinated by this. Yeah.
so one of the things, one of my health coaches actually, she leverages Kaizen in her practice as well, which I really love. And I'm going to get his name wrong. I think it's Gary Fogg, maybe. But she talks about the fact that if you make a 1% improvement every single day, at the end of the year, you're however percent better. But people try to think about these really large improvements and these really large changes. And if you just focus on being 1% better, it has a really big impact. And that's Kaizen in practice, right? And so Kaizen is looking at, I'll use social media as an example. So when an algorithm changes in Instagram, for example, you're applying Kaizen. You're looking at what you used to do and you're saying, okay, how am I going to pivot this? How am I going to make small changes so that I can continue to be relevant? I can continue to be seen by my clients, right? These days, it's, am I going to start leveraging more video instead of doing more static post to my feed, right? Whatever, that's kind of Kaizen in practice where you may have been looking at that and seeing that trend before there was an announcement, or you may have been doing your own analysis and saying, it's funny, when I post videos, it gets much better response and reach than when I just post a picture. I think I'm going to start posting more videos. And it's sometimes that like 1% little tiny thing that you're doing, but you're doing it consistently, as opposed to saying, you know what, algorithm changed, I'm out, no more Instagram, I'm going to go learn a new platform, which is sometimes what I think people do is they make a more radical change when it's really more those small, continuous evolutions and changes that need to be made.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And what crosses my mind on that too is that a lot of people don't um, give themselves a time to keep learning, which then can lead to that 1% change every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they don't sharpen the saw before they go into battle. They keep rushing to battle with this blunt saw and it's not working. Um, and I think people forget that you're really here for the long game, and persistence and patience are very, very important in playing that game. Um, so, what sort of data do you use or recommend? Us? Well, so data's everywhere. Okay, you can capture it. So, what are some of your recommendations about how to use data to help you uh, grow your business, manage your business? What are some recommendations on how to use data?
Yeah, one of the things that I work with a lot with my clients is looking at things like conversion rates. A lot of times when people, because I help people scale, they think scale, I need to go create something brand new, or I need to do something new for a new market. And they think new and different, when usually optimizing something that you already have is your fastest path to scale. And data will tell you that, right? If you think about, let's say you have a 2% conversion rate on what, however you do your launches, maybe you do a webinar and you have a 2% conversion rate out of that. Well, if you change that to a 4% conversion rate, you literally doubled your revenue. And let's say it's a DIY product, it's not something that takes a great deal of time, so you have pretty high profit margins on it. You pretty significantly increased your profitability as well. And a lot of times people make things a little more challenging by thinking new and different. And I think if you do look at your data from really your customer journey perspective, so where are people finding you? What content are they actually engaging in? Which blog posts get the most traffic? Which podcast episodes get the most traffic, right? Really look at which social media posts get the most engagement, right? It's not necessarily likes, it's engagement. And so when you think about the result that you want, if you
Mhm.
always focus on your outcomes, and then you think about how can I tell what's supporting me in getting this outcome and what's not supporting me in getting this outcome, it's usually things along your customer journey. So are they seeing what you're doing? Are they showing up for what you're doing live if you're doing any sort of launches or webinars or things of that nature? What's your conversion rate? What's your retention rate? And so, to me, if you do sales calls, right, how many people do you get on a sales call and what's your close rate? how many people convert into paying clients. And so I think it's all about the outcome that you want, and then looking at that full customer journey to see where along the way you can optimize. And that is my simple tip for scaling and actually driving not just more revenue in your business, but a lot more profit in your business without doing something crazy and new and different that's going to take you months and months and months and tons of time and money.
Yeah, so what you really said is one simple thing to do is just to focus on conversion rate
Mm-hmm. Yep.
before doing anything else. Just, okay, can I double my conversion rate from click to purchase?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the other ways, and I remember I used to work in an e-commerce agency, and there was sort of three elements you could look at. Conversion rate was one. In other words, can you double your conversion rate? Can you double the amount of, I suppose, traffic? So
Mm-hmm.
that again would double your sales. So double, and then the last one is, can you increase the lifetime value of the customer and double that?
Mm-hmm.
Or could you just sell them a product that's $200 instead of $100? So
Mm-hmm.
it could be double, double, double just by working on three elements of your business. It all sounds
Yep.
simple, but in essence it is. But there's a lot of work behind the scenes to achieve doing that. Um, so the other thing that I'm interested in is, I think one of the things I've discovered along the way, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, is a few years ago I realised that I couldn't keep doing all the writing for my publishing, business. Essentially, I'm essentially a digital publisher that makes money around that. I couldn't keep doing all the writing. I was up at 4:30 a.m. every morning, wrote 5 days a week, and as well as trying to work on other stuff and travel and speak. So, and then it sort of I said I really need to move away from doing the doing. And I love a phrase by I think his name's Trent Dearsmid, who I interviewed the other day. He said there's two things you should be doing, and one is document and delegate. There were and that's two beautiful, simple concepts as well. Now, I'd be interested in your thoughts on documenting, in other words, process. And I think this is where scalability comes into the fore as well as delegation, because delegation, on one hand, allows you to scale you or buy your time back because you're getting someone else to do what you were doing. Documenting is where you actually identify the processes, and you mentioned processes along the way. Let's have a little chat before we finish on documenting and process and how important that is for simplicity.
Yeah, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. And so I focus a lot on systems with my clients because I think if you think about your business too, right? If you don't have systems documented and everything's in your head, then your entire business is reliant on you. It becomes really difficult to take vacations or to check out or to not have to make every decision or be pinged all the time by your team if you have them, right? If you can create systems, which includes documenting your processes, getting clear on what tool is the right tool for the job, getting clear on who is going to actually do whatever that process is, and your strategies around it. If you think about all of that, that to me is what gives you your time back. It's what gives you your freedom, and it's what lets you build an asset in your business instead of your business just being you. And so I do think it's really important. And as natural visionaries, a lot of entrepreneurs will avoid it. They
Oh yeah,
don't want to do systems. The idea of documenting systems,
yeah.
like they want no part of it, right?
Well, it
Um,
brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. Frankly, I start to twitch and going, documenting. We'll do that tomorrow.
and the thing is this, and this is what I find and what I tell most people is when you're doing something, that is the time to document it. If you say, I'm going to carve out all of Friday, I'm going to spend the day documenting all my procedures, you will come up with every excuse in the world why you
Hmm.
can't do that on Friday. But the next time you go to do something, if you open up a Google Doc or OneNote or whatever you use to capture your notes, and you just simply write down the steps that you take, maybe take some screenshots, you have the beginning of a really nice SOP, a standard operating procedure. If you have a team who can do that for you, you can just turn on Loom and record yourself doing what you're doing and hand it off to your team and say, hey, can you please go document this process end to end following what I did, include screenshots, include references. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to get it done. But the best way to do it is to do it at the time you're doing something
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to carve out a day, a week, a month to go out and create all of your systems and processes. Because if you are that natural visionary, you will avoid it at all costs.
Yes, I totally agree. But what I love, but from Trent's observations was document as you go, as you document as you're doing. There we go. That's a rather nice little phrase. Um, and then once you've done that, then it's a lot easier to scale, because then you can delegate, because your team member that maybe you've just hired or the existing one knows what to do, because the process has been documented.
Mm-hmm.
So that allows one to scale. It allows you to make business simpler. And it's this is a recurring theme I hear all the time in my chats with entrepreneurs all around the world. Is that, and I did love that little phrase of document and delegate. So, um, so just before we finish up, Krista, is there maybe a couple of things you'd like our listeners to know that you think is really important, for a couple of little takeaways? Are a couple of things that you think are absolutely critical to keep life a joy, even though we're all dragged into making things complicated, right? There's this battle for simplicity that's going on every day. Um, and so, what are some of the couple of things that you would like our listeners to take away today?
Yeah, there's a few questions that I think you can reflect on and ask yourself. And anytime you're about to do something, I always ask, is this necessary? Is there a better way? Is there a way to do less and get the same or better result?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really give yourself the space to think about that, you will find that there's a lot of things that you don't need to do. If you do not yet have clarity on your vision and your business model, start there, because that will help you answer those questions. But a lot of times you'll realize you can lean things out. There's things that you do not need to be doing. But sometimes if you don't get so tied to, I've always done it this way, and you do allow yourself to think about, is there a better way to do this where I could get the same or better results? You will usually find ways. And sometimes that will mean that you will have to do systems. Sometimes that means you will have to set up an automation, right? They may be things that might not be something that you want to invest your time in, but they are the things that will give you the freedom and flexibility in your schedule to do more of the things that you want to do when you carve out the space to do them. So I would say don't avoid systems, don't avoid automations, don't avoid any of that. And you really will set yourself up to scale and to be able to delegate and really have a successful team around you. And finally, don't be afraid to say no, right? When you have that clarity on what is important and what is directionally correct for you, you kind of have to be unapologetic with saying no. You don't have to make excuses, even though we feel like we do, and we always feel we don't want to disappoint people. But at the end of the day, you saying yes to something that's not right for you is you taking away time from either something that's going to help you grow or scale your business, or something that's important to you outside your business in your personal life. And you have to do that. Is it worth it? And I think you will usually find it's right to say no.
Yes, a lot of people feel guilty by saying no. And I think that's something that's wired into us, to be nice. We want to say yes. We want to please.
Mhm.
Some people don't give a shit, but others, most of us do, in terms of how we get on with life. There was one interesting phrase you mentioned, a word called automation. And I think, on reflection on that, is that delegation can be, tasks can be delegated not just to humans, they can be delegated to the machine. And I
Mhm.
think that's the other thing that the digital world has brought us, and the low cost of the tools we can use and the platforms that are available today is to automate. And I think that's the other question maybe we've got to think as part of our delegation pillar, maybe. Um, so, Krista, it's been absolutely fabulous to hear your words of wisdom and insights about your journey as an entrepreneur, and what you've learned along the way, and share that with me and our listeners. Um, so, if they want to use Crista in a team, what are the couple of services that you provide and where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody who needs help really getting that clarity of vision or really reimagining their business model, I do 1 day business intensives, and there we roll up our sleeves. We spend 8 hours together. We map it all out. We do your flow, your process flows, the whole 9 yards. Otherwise, I have a program called Simplify to Scale, and that is where I really do help people lean things out, get simplicity in place, put their systems in place, build their team, and position themselves to scale their business and level up. And you can find all the details over at leanoutmethod.com. And if you're a podcast listener, you can find my podcast at leanoutpodcast.com as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Crista. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to catching up in real life one day when the madness subsides and the unseen enemy is kept at bay. So looking forward to catching up in real life one day.
Thanks so much for having me on.